The sound of crystal champagne flutes clinking together didn't sting nearly as much as the laughter. It was the kind of laughter that wasn't shared with you, but thrown at you, sharp and jagged like broken glass. I stood near the entrance of the grand oak ballroom, clutching a glass of lukewarm water, feeling the scratchy polyester of my jacket rubbing against my neck. It was a $20 suit I'd bought from a thrift store specifically for this night, and it was doing exactly what I needed it to do. It was making me invisible to the people who mattered, and highly visible to the people who didn't. My younger brother, Sam, looked nervous. He was standing across the room near the ice sculpture, adjusting his silk tie, looking like a prince. This was his engagement party, the night he was officially joining the wealthy, prestigious Vance family. And me. I was the stain on the portrait. I was the older brother who apparently never made it, the one who dropped out of college, the one who disappeared for 5 years and came back looking like he slept in his car. At least, that's the narrative I let them believe. Oh my God, look at him, a voice sneered from my left. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. It was Brad. Brad was the bride's older brother, a man who wore a watch that cost more than my first car, and had a personality that was cheaper than my socks. He was standing with his circle of sycophants, 3 other guys in tailored navy suits, all holding scotch, all looking at me like I was a bug that had crawled onto a wedding cake. I didn't know the caterers were allowed to drink with the guests, Brad said, his voice loud enough to carry over the jazz music. The circle laughed. It was a practiced, corporate laugh. The kind you hear in boardrooms when the boss makes a bad joke. I slowly turned to face them. I kept my face neutral, a mask of tired defeat. "Hello, Brad," I said softly. "Congratulations on your sister's engagement." Brad took a step closer, invading my personal space. He smelled of expensive cologne and arrogance. He flicked the lapel of my jacket with his finger, a gesture so disrespectful my security team, who were currently disguised as waiters, probably tensed up in the corners of the room. "Is this nylon?" Brad asked, feigning shock. "Sam told us you were struggling, Liam, but I didn't realize you were shopping at the dumpster behind the Goodwill. Seriously, man, it's a black tie event. You look like you're about to ask me for spare change." One of his friends, a guy named Greg, who I knew for a fact had falsified his quarterly reports 3 months in a row, chimed in. "Come on, Brad, cut him some slack. Maybe he's making a statement. You know, poverty chic. It's very trendy in wherever he lives." They laughed again. I took a sip of my water, watching them. What they didn't know, what nobody in this room knew except for my brother Sam, was that the struggle was a lie. I hadn't disappeared for 5 years to be a bum. I had disappeared to build Titanium Ventures, a private equity firm that had quietly acquired 60% of the technology and logistics sector in the tri-state area, including the company Brad and Greg worked for. In fact, technically, I owned the building we were standing in. But I needed to know who my brother was marrying into. Sam was blinded by love, but I needed to see if the Vance family were good people, or if they were just gold-plated trash. The experiment was yielding results faster than I expected. "I'm just here to support Sam," I said, keeping my voice low. "I don't want any trouble." "Support him?" Brad scoffed, swirling his drink. "You're embarrassing him. Look at this room, Liam. There are senators here. There are CEOs. And then there's you, looking like a failed insurance salesman. Do you know who I am? Do you know who we work for?" This was the moment. The bait. I feigned ignorance. "I know you work in finance," I mumbled. Brad puffed out his chest. "Finance? Buddy, I am the Senior Vice President of Regional Sales for Titanium Logistics. We move the world." My bonus last year was bigger than your entire life's earnings. We are the elite. And frankly, having someone like you standing here, it devalues the brand." He looked around at his friends for approval. "Honestly, if I was Sam, I would have paid you to stay home." My brother Sam spotted the commotion and started walking over, his face pale. He knew the truth, but I had sworn him to secrecy. "Is everything okay here?" Sam asked, his voice tight. Brad slung an arm around Sam's shoulder, a gesture that looked friendly, but was purely dominant. "Everything's great, Sammy. Just giving your big brother some fashion advice. You know, trying to help him upgrade from unemployed uncle to presentable human being." Sam looked at me, pain in his eyes. He wanted to defend me. He wanted to scream the truth. But I gave him a microscopic shake of my head. "Not yet. Liam has had a hard time," Sam said, sticking to the script. "He's doing his best." Brad laughed, a barking sound. "His best isn't good enough for this family, Sam. Look, I'm saying this because we're about to be brothers-in-law. You need to cut the dead weight. You're marrying a Vance. We don't associate with failures. If he wants to come to the wedding, tell him to sit in the back with the staff." Just then, a waiter walked by with a tray of red wine. Brad, caught up in his own ego, gestured wildly with his hand and knocked into the waiter. The tray tipped. 2 full glasses of Cabernet Sauvignon cascaded down the front of my cheap grey suit. The crimson liquid soaked into the polyester instantly, looking like a fresh wound. The room went silent. The jazz band even stopped playing for a second. Brad didn't apologize. He didn't check on the waiter. He just looked at me and grinned. "Oops," he said, zero remorse in his eyes. "Well, look on the bright side, Liam. Now the suit has some color. It actually looks better. Consider it a donation." The group exploded in laughter. Even the bride's mother, watching from a nearby table, covered her mouth to hide a giggle. That was it. The data collection phase was over. The execution phase had begun. I looked down at the stain, then up at Brad. I didn't look like a defeated brother anymore. My posture shifted. I straightened my spine, rolling my shoulders back. The demeanor of the poor relation evaporated, replaced by the cold, hard steel of a man who negotiates billion-dollar mergers for breakfast. I pulled a handkerchief from my pocket, silk, not polyester, and dabbed my hand. "That was clumsy, Brad," I said. The tone of my voice had changed. It was deeper, resonant, authoritative. Brad blinked, sensing the shift, but too drunk on power to understand it. "Excuse me," he challenged. I said that was clumsy, I repeated, locking eyes with him. "But not as clumsy as your handling of the Peterson account last month." The color drained from Brad's face instantly. The Peterson account was a classified internal disaster at Titanium Logistics, where $3 million had gone missing due to clerical errors. Only the executive board and the person responsible knew about it. What did you say?" Brad stammered. The friends behind him went quiet. "And you, Greg," I said, turning to the man on his right. "Falsifying overtime hours for your sales team to inflate the budget. That's federal fraud, not just a company policy violation. And you, Sarah," I pointed to the third man, "you've been leaking client lists to our competitor, roughly every Tuesday, at 3 p.m. from your personal email." The circle of bullies looked like they had been slapped. The air in the ballroom grew heavy. "Who the hell are you?" Brad whispered, his voice trembling. "How do you know that?" I ignored him and walked toward the stage. "Sam," I said, "I think it's time for a toast." Sam grinned, the relief washing over him, and handed me the microphone. The feedback whined for a split second, drawing the attention of all 200 guests. Ladies and gentlemen, I began, my voice booming through the speakers. For those who don't know me, I'm Liam, Sam's brother. Tonight, I've been told I don't fit in. I've been told my suit is cheap. I've been told I'm a failure. I paused, letting the silence stretch. I looked directly at Brad, who was sweating profusely. But the interesting thing about failures is that they often pay close attention to details. For example, I noticed that the Senior Vice President of Titanium Logistics, Mr. Brad Vance, seems to think he runs the world. I reached into the inside pocket of my wine-stained jacket and pulled out a phone. Not a cracked burner phone, but the latest encrypted satellite prototype that hadn't even hit the market yet. I dialed a number and put it on speaker against the microphone. "Yes, sir," a crisp voice answered. It was Margaret, the global head of HR for my conglomerate. "Margaret," I said, "I'm currently at the engagement party for Sam. I need to make some immediate structural changes to the logistics division." "Of course, sir." "Proceed," Margaret's voice rang out clear as a bell. The room was deathly silent. Brad was shaking his head, mouthing "No way, no way." "Effective immediately," I said, staring into Brad's soul. "I am terminating the employment of Brad Vance for gross negligence and conduct unbecoming of a titanium executive. Also, please flag Greg Henson for an immediate audit regarding budget fraud, and terminate Michael Ross for corporate espionage. Have security escort them out of the building on Monday, actually, strike that. Revoke their access passes now. Their company phones should brick in about 30 seconds. Done, sir, Margaret replied. Anything else? Yes. Transfer the engagement party venue ownership to Sam's name. It's his wedding gift. I'm tired of renting it to people who don't respect the staff. Understood, Mr. CEO. Have a good evening. I hung up. A collective gasp swept through the room. It was the sound of reality crashing down on a fantasy. Brad's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, and the screen went black. A brick? He looked up at me, his eyes wide with terror. You're the chairman. You're LJ Enterprises. LJ stands for Liam James, I said coldly. I own the company, Brad. I own the subsidiary you work for. I own the mortgage on your penthouse, which is tied to your employment contract. And as of 10 seconds ago, I own the very uncomfortable silence you are currently standing in. The mother-in-law, the one who had giggled at the wine spill, rushed forward, her face a mask of panicked flattery. Liam. Oh, Liam, it was just a joke. Brad has such a unique sense of humor, you know how boys are. We are family. I looked at her, then down at my stained suit. Family doesn't treat people like garbage just because they think they are poor, Mrs. Vance. Family protects each other. Sam, I turned to my brother, I love you. I support this marriage if she makes you happy. But these people, they work for you now. Because I'm giving you my seat on the board of the logistics division. Sam's jaw dropped. Liam, I can't. You can, I smiled. You're the only honest man in the room. I stepped off the stage and walked toward Brad. He was trembling, tears actually forming in his eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by the pathetic fear of a bully who has lost his stick. Liam, please, he whimpered, grabbing my sleeve. I have a mortgage. I have a car payment. You can't just fire me at a party. I gently removed his hand from my arm. I didn't fire you at a party, Brad. I fired you when you decided that a man's worth is determined by the cost of his jacket. I fired you when you knocked a tray out of a worker's hand and didn't even look him in the eye. You fired yourself. I just signed the paperwork. I turned to the waiter, who had spilled the wine. He was standing in the corner, looking terrified that he would lose his job. I walked over to him. "What's your name?" I asked. "David, sir," he squeaked. "David, I'm sorry about the mess. That suit was itchy anyway. Do you have a spare shirt in the back?" "Yes, sir." "Good. Go get it. And David, you're promoted to floor manager. Brad's severance package will cover your raise." I walked out of the ballroom toward the restrooms to clean up, leaving the chaos behind me. I could hear the shouts, the crying, the frantic explanations. The cake hadn't even been cut yet. But as I washed the wine off my hands in the marble sink, looking at my reflection in the mirror, I knew one thing for sure: the wedding was going to be a lot more respectful. And I'd definitely be wearing a better suit. But the story didn't end there. As I walked out of the restroom, drying my hands, I found the fiancée, Sarah, waiting for me in the hallway. She wasn't crying like her mother or panicking like her brother. She looked furious. But not at her family. At me. "You think you're a hero," she hissed, stepping in front of me. "You just ruined my engagement party. You humiliated my brother in front of everyone." I stopped, studying her. This was the final variable. I needed to know if Sam was marrying another Brad. "Your brother humiliated himself, Sarah." I just turned the lights on. "You're a monster," she spat. "You could have told us. You lied to us for years." "I didn't lie," I corrected. "I just didn't brag. There's a difference. And if my worth to you depends on my bank account, then Sam is in trouble." She glared at me, her hands balled into fists. "I don't care about your money. I care that you hurt my family. Your family is toxic, Sarah. If you can't see that, then maybe you don't deserve Sam." Just then, the double doors of the ballroom burst open. It wasn't security. It wasn't Sam. It was the police. 2 officers walked in, looking stern. Brad was pointing at me from the doorway, screaming. "That's him. He assaulted me. He threatened me." I sighed. Of course. The final desperation of a drowning man. He was trying to get me arrested to save face. The officers approached me. "Sir, we've had a complaint of a disturbance and a verbal threat," the taller officer said, his hand resting near his belt. I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I simply reached into my pocket and pulled out my business card, the real one. The titanium embossed card that only 30 people in the world carried. I handed it to the officer. "Officer, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. The only thing being assaulted here is the truth. And if you check the security cameras, which my company installed in this building last week, you'll see exactly who assaulted whom." The officer looked at the card, then at me. His eyes widened. He recognized the logo. It was the logo on the side of his patrol car's computer system. "Mr. Vance?" "Mr. James," I corrected. "Vance is the man screaming over there. And I believe you have a warrant for his arrest regarding the embezzlement I just reported to the district attorney 5 minutes ago via text." The officer's radio clicked. "Dispatch to Unit 1, we have a priority flag on a suspect, Bradley Vance. Federal warrant just came through. White Collar Fraud Division." The officer looked at Brad, then back at me. He nodded respectfully. "Sorry to disturb you, sir." They walked past me, handcuffs coming out. The scream Brad let out when they cuffed him was the most satisfying sound of the evening. It wasn't the sound of a victim. It was the sound of consequences arriving, late but heavy. Sam walked out into the hall, standing next to Sarah. He looked at his fiancée, then at me. He had a choice to make. Stand with the woman who was defending the indefensible, or stand with the brother who had just saved him from a lifetime of misery. Sarah looked at Sam. Do something, Sam. He's arresting Brad. Sam looked at me, then at Brad being dragged away. He took a deep breath. He took Sarah's hand, but not to comfort her. He let it go. He stole from the company, Sarah. He treated Liam like dirt. If you're on his side, then I don't think I can be on yours. Sarah gasped. The engagement ring on her finger seemed to lose its sparkle. I walked over to my brother and put a hand on his shoulder. Come on, Sam. Let's go get a burger. I know a place where the suits are cheap, but the people are real. We walked out of the hotel, leaving the diamonds, the champagne, and the fake smiles behind. As we stepped into the cool night air, Sam looked at me. Is the suit really polyester? 100%, I grinned. It itches like crazy. Sam laughed. It was a real laugh. And that was worth more than the entire company.